going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to the next edition. I'm Vin from New York City, and there's Kat over there in LA.
Yo, what's up?
We want to say hi, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting show. Thank you. Today, in case you haven't guessed, we are going to do The Godfather. This is one of my picks, and Kat is going to ask me why.
Well, Vin, thank you very much. I guess you have chosen The Godfather. This is a pick from you this month, or this week. So why did you decide to bring The Godfather as one of your first choices?
All right. I got to say, it's definitely because of the cultural impact. I thought it was a great movie to begin with, but more to the point, how its effect on the culture of America, but the world, has played a big role, especially within the organized crime community. There were several members who shall be unnamed who said that it was almost an exact depiction of the lifestyle. Movies previously made before The Godfather, which came out in 1972, gangster movies, mob movies, were not received all that well. And when The Godfather came out, it was like a 180.
Are you saying it wasn't received by who well? You know, because James Cagney, who did play a lot of mobster movies before that, you know, I mean, it could be a caricature, but those films were, James Cagney is known for playing mob guys.
Absolutely. And James Cagney, one of the greatest actors of all time, a well-loved actor, played several mob characters, but the movies were not received well by critics, and they were not received well by people involved in organized crime. None of the movies previous to The Godfather came off like The Godfather did. It brought it to another level. It brought it to a level to this day not seen. Close to it, maybe Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And possibly Casino, both movies made by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
But The Godfather paved the way for those movies to be made. Basically opened up the avenue for these movies because they were received so well. They said, wow, there's a market for it. And, you know, subsequently it came forward. But anyway, major impact on the culture of America for sure, but the entire world in general. They said, wow, everybody looked at this and said, this is major. Look at this.
Those Italians are kind of crazy. Is that what they were saying?
Pretty much. Exactly. So great movie, but because of the cultural impact, I was very impressed by that.
All right. So with this, you said it was filmed by Martin Scorsese.
No, Godfather was directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis Ford Coppola. Okay. Well, that's something I wasn't sure of. So what elements do you think Coppola put into this movie that, you know, makes it iconic?
Well, what he did was the studio, as well as Francis Ford Coppola, wanted to add an air of realism to it. So what they did was, as opposed to previous movies, the scenes were drawn out a little bit longer. They tried to make it seem more like real life, as opposed to every scene having some type of major impact. The dialogue was emphasized, the acting was emphasized, and the storyline was emphasized. And the acting, the casting, which was very difficult for Coppola and the studio heads to get. They had major conflict with who they wanted to play the certain parts, but in the end, it came out great. The story and the final product came out wonderful. Of course, we're talking about Martin Brando, Robert Duvall, Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, James Caan, Talia Shire. I mean, a great cast. So
I heard there was some conflict that they weren't sure if they were going to cast Al Pacino in this movie.
They were not. The studio did not want Al Pacino. Francis Ford Coppola had to fight tooth and nail to get him to get him into this part. The studio did not want him.
But you know what? I'm glad that they kept him. Was there a turning point where they decided that they were going to keep him?
I think that there was a scene in the movie that Coppola showed to the studio execs that nailed it for him. That they said, okay, this guy, we're going to use him. He's great. So
If you had to classify one scene that really captured your interest in this movie, which would it be?
I would have to say the scene where Marlon Brando's bodyguard, Paulie, is killed. The way that is laid out is this guy, Paulie, the bodyguard, calls in sick one day, and he is replaced by one of Brando's character, Vito Corleone, his son, Fredo, who, as we learn in subsequent films, may not be the brightest guy in the world, and as a result, Brando, there's an assassination attempt on him, on his character, Vito Corleone. And because of that, the other sons in the family wanted this guy Paulie killed. They were like, he sold out our dad by calling in sick that day. So they took him off, went for a drive, had him drive around and around and around while they were doing different tasks. Pulled over, one of the guys hopped out of the car to go to the bathroom, and the guy sitting behind him shot him in the head and killed him. And that solidified it for me, because when I saw that, I was just like, wow, these people will take you out for calling in sick.
Yeah, right. It's like, I'm not gonna have any sick days. I work every day. Any vacation? No
Exactly.
Vacation.
He came in, he's like, oh, I got a little bit of cold. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, go get a drink, no problem. As soon as he went in the other room, they were like, first thing, that's it, that guy's gone. No sick days in the mob. So
right.
That scene nailed it for me.
Okay. What else would you like to bring to people about what's really good about this movie? You mentioned how it changed the culture. You mentioned how they were acted toward each other in the movie as mob characters, of organized crime. So what else would you want to tell people about this movie?
Well, there are some facts that I want to just let everybody know about. I just want to reiterate, The Godfather was made, or it came out in 1972, and the story itself, it was a period piece. It came out in 72, but the story itself took place from 1945 to 1955, so it was a period of 10 years. The movie itself won 3 Oscars in 1973, which was the 45th Annual Academy Awards. It won Best Picture, Best Actor for Marlon Brando, and the Best Adapted Screenplay for Mario Puzo as well as Francis Ford Coppola. Mario Puzo, who wrote the book The Godfather, they brought him in. They brought him in to help write the screenplay. So at the Academy Awards, when they announced Brando as the Best Actor for the year, he declined the award. He didn't show up. He sent as his representative a woman from the Apache Nation, a Native American, and she made a speech as to why she was there, and this is her speech.
Hello, my name is Sasheen Littlefeather. I'm Apache, and I am president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee. I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he has asked me to tell you in a very long speech, which I cannot share with you presently because of time, but I will be glad to share with the press afterwards, that he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry, and on television in movie reruns, and also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee. I beg at this time that I have not intruded upon this evening, and that we will, in the future, our hearts and our understandings will meet with love and generosity. Thank you on behalf of Marlon Brando.
You know, and I got to say, I love that speech because, I mean, she came up and she made her point, but she was also like, look, I don't want to intrude on anybody. And the bottom line is we just all want to approach each other with love and respect. You know, and that's what she said. She didn't want to step on any toes, but I think she did a great job.
And then they got casinos. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
So the movie, what do you guys say?
Well, I was going to comment on her. It was she was polite and everything, but you know, hopefully, it did have an impact at that time, which I'm not quite sure of because I was only 3.
Yeah, but they did talk about it for a while after. And once again, Brando he declined the award, so they did speak of it. But it's classic. It goes down in history as maybe one of the first times that an actor declined his award for humanitarian reasons. The movie was ranked second greatest film in American cinema by the American Film Institute, behind the movie Citizen Kane. And Sergio Leone was Paramount's first choice to direct the film. Now, Sergio Leone, people may or may not know, directed Once Upon a Time in America, Once Upon a Time in the West, and the classic The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Well, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is definitely a classic Western. If you're into Westerns, definitely see The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know, it's a little bit long, but you can't beat it. It was a very captivating story.
Absolutely. Great director, Sergio Leone. Hard to go wrong with Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, and Angel Eyes, which was played by Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah, Lee Van Cleef, yeah.
Yeah, great movie. Now, there were major conflicts making the movie. The studio did not want Francis Ford Coppola whatsoever, and he had anxiety making the movie. And this is him discussing those anxieties.
The Godfather was a horrible experience for me, and for that reason, whenever I walk in a restaurant and they play I become nauseous. You know, so it was just, I mean, I would go to sleep, not exaggerate, I had these we didn't have any money, so we had very tiny little apartments so we could save the redeem in case I got fired, and I would go to bed just like in sweaty sheets of such anxiety and fear of being fired, and they didn't like our dailies, they didn't like Pacino, they didn't like Brando, and by the second half week, the word was I was going to be fired. But there is one thing that I...
Oh, did we lose him?
We lost your audio there.
I think we lost him there. Hold on one second. Coppola anxiety.
The Godfather was... Second half week, the word was I was going to be fired. But there is one thing that I knew. They will never fire you in the middle of a week. They will only fire you on the Friday because these cheap guys think that they can get the new director back into... the gear, so Monday they'll just have a new director. So what I did, knowing that they would never, when it was really serious and they were really going to fire me on the Wednesday, I fired how many people did I fire? I fired like 6 people. I fired my AD, the producer, one of the producers, and they were so thrown into confusion.
Great idea.
They were so thrown to confusion that they finally just said, look it, we're in it now, let them just finish the picture. And that's how I avoided getting fired.
We got to try that when they want to throw us off of YouTube. You know, we're just going to tell them, no, the clips are up there. We can't get them down. You can't take them down. They just keep going back up again.
Yeah, right. And then for all you people in corporate America, if you ever think you're about to get fired, fire 4 people under you, and then they can't fire you.
That's right. Exactly. They need you. So even Francis Ford Coppola said, you know, they wanted to fire Pacino. And like you said, you had heard they wanted to fire Pacino. This is Diane Keaton, who played his wife, Kay, in the movie. This is her memory of them wanting to fire Pacino.
They
wanted to fire Pacino, and they wanted him out. And he had shot, Francis had shot the early scenes where we're just young and he's kind of insecure, and they kept hating him, the studio. And so what happened was that Francis, being a genius, he said, okay, I'm going to shoot this one scene, and he shot the scene so that they wouldn't fire Pacino, of where Pacino kills the cop. Do you know where Pacino, oh my God, in that scene, Al Pacino's so great in that scene. It's so moving. And, I hadn't seen the movie in 30 years. So I figured, well, I'm going to be there. So I took my computer out and I watched it on computer. And I have to tell you, the movie is genius. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe it. And it's all that damn Francis Ford.
Yeah, it came out genius. And I think you and I had mentioned that before, that, such hard work and frustration goes into the making of anything, any piece of artwork. And sometimes it comes out on the other end, a masterpiece, and shows, what a little hard work can do.
Yeah, I think the movie is, a classic. It's worth everybody seeing it if you haven't seen it already. And matter of fact, if you have seen it, it's always good to go back and watch it again because it doesn't get old.
That's right. You'll always see things that you never saw the first time, or the second time, or the third time, and you'll be like, "Wow, that's amazing!" And it tells a different story almost, or it clarifies the story. Right. Now, this movie was filmed on location in New York as well as Sicily, but the studio execs wanted the movie to be set in modern-day Kansas City.
Who would fill a gangster movie in Kansas City?
City. I
don't know what they were thinking either.
New York, that's the place to be. Now, Coppola used several of his family members in the movie. He used his father at the wedding scene, playing the piano, and he used his daughter, who was just a little baby at the time, at the end during the christening scene, and he used his sister, who played Connie, and the actress was Talia Shire, who most people may know as Adrian Balboa from the Rocky movie series. Yo, Adrian! And I know that you said you did not know that.
I did not know that. I didn't know that she played Adrian. I didn't know that was his sister.
Now, another great scene, one of the more graphic scenes, where the studio executive finds a horse's head in his bed in an effort to get him to do the bidding of the Don. The severed horse's head in that scene was a real horse's head.
Was Peter not around at that time? Is that what happened?
Peter was probably not around, or they weren't messing around with Paramount and Francis Ford Coppola. In any event, it was a real horse's head. Now, the character that plays Sonny, James Caan, in the movie, another great scene where Sonny dies and he gets shot to pieces by multiple machine guns. The scene took about, there are conflicting stories. One is that it took 3 days to film this one scene, which takes about maybe 30 seconds in movie time. But James Caan said it took about 1 day because of the squibs that were placed on his body, which explode and make it seem like he's being shot. In any event, this is James Caan on the Sonny death scene.
Yeah, I mean, now I wouldn't have done it at all. I mean, it kind of scared me because the guy, you got to see these squibs. They were like a brass casing. Do they hurt? They'll blow a hole in your hand. Like, they sewed them into your jacket, they sewed them into the seats, they sewed them into the car, they blew the Bondo out of the car. So we had to choreograph where your hands were and all that. Now, the only reason I did it was because there were girls on the set. The truth of the matter is that if you analyze, I mean, obviously when you do a picture about the mob, it's about the mob. And to make it entertaining, a movie, you're not going to have them planting flowers.
To make it entertaining, right. So, here's an interesting point. I think it was the studio, not necessarily Francis Ford Coppola, although it might have been Coppola. They wanted to add a little bit more drama and anger to the movie. So the scene where Connie's husband, Carlo, beats her while she's pregnant, that was added specifically for anger value or frightening value, because that scene was not not in the movie to begin with. And I'm going to mention this later on. One of the things I wanted to say was, when you go to see this movie, it's not terribly graphic. There's not a lot of blood and guts. There are some, but it's not over the top whatsoever. And so much so that they had to add something to create a little bit more interest in terms of shock value, and that scene was added. Mm-hmm. Now, the movie replaced Gone with the Wind as top movie earner until Jaws came out in 1975. Top movie earner.
Really?
So,
yeah. You know, that's interesting. It came out as a top earner after Gone with the Wind.
That's right. And a lot of movies in the 70s that subsequently followed became top earners. So the movie industry and the creative talent that was to follow was immense. And we'll talk about those movies later on. Stanley Kubrick, who was another great director, 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, The Shining, I can go on and on, Spartacus. He said that this movie, The Godfather, may be the best cast ever and could possibly be the best movie ever made. So coming from Stanley Kubrick, that says a lot. At the 1973 Golden Globes, it won a record 5 Golden Globes, which was not surpassed. That record was not surpassed until 2017. 44 years later, the movie was La La Land. Held that record for 44 years. Once again, major accomplishment.
I still haven't seen La La Land yet, but anyway.
I haven't seen it either, but it's supposed to be a great movie, so we'll check that out another time.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of movies, people like to have fun on the set, and these guys were no different. And one of the things that they like to do was they had these mooning contests where they would moon each other. And this is Robert Duvall on one of these mooning contests.
This is absolute true story. We're in Staten Island at the wedding, and Brando, he gave out belts at the end for championship belts for mooning. He went for his belt, I went for my belt, and Coppola said, "Oh, come on now, there are women and children, but he kept going, I kept going. We mooned each other, mooned everybody. Some woman turned to me and said, "Mr. Duvall, you're fine," but she turned to her friend and said, "But did you catch the balls on that Brando?" She said.
That's funny. You see the balls on that Brando. I don't know if I want to see that, but that's great.
Yeah, you know what? That's one image I can skip, you know?
Yeah, exactly. We can picture it in your head, and that's enough.
No.
Maybe we can put it on the image behind us, you know? One on yours and one on mine. They're that big. All right, Kat, I have a special treat for you. I did not tell you this. I wanted to surprise you. I was able to get in touch with Al Pacino's agent and allowed us to make a phone call into him. And I wanted to ask him a couple questions. So I am going to get him on the phone now. He's waiting. Let me dial in here.
Yeah.
Mr. Pacino? Mr. Pacino?
Yeah.
Yes, hi. This is Vin and Kat from Next Edition. How are you?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for accepting our call. And we just want to say that Vin and Kat are huge fans.
Very huge.
Lifelong fans. Yeah. And once again, we just want to thank you. We understand that you only have a few minutes to speak to us, so we want to get to the point. And what we wanted to know was, or what I wanted to know was, prior to movies, as I understand it, you worked in the theater?
I worked all kinds.
All kinds of theater?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So you've been acting for so long. Did you ever think about doing anything else?
I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah, well, I can relate to that. We can both relate to that because Kat and I have been reviewing movies for a lifetime, and we don't know how to do much else either. So what would you say, or what would you attribute your acting skills to?
Instincts.
Instincts. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Instinct, innate, natural, intuitive. I like those descriptions.
Okay, I'll look up some new ones in my thesaurus.
No, those are fine, Mr. Pacino. They obviously, work for you.
That's my life.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. We'll have to ask you this. You've had an amazing career. I mean, top notch. What do you feel about your career going forward?
Let me give you a little inside information. No, I'm just getting warmed up.
Oh, that's great. That's great. We don't want to see you end your career either, so that's wonderful. On another level, with respect to The Godfather, that's the movie we're reviewing today. The part of Michael Corleone, we've talked about this. The studio had different actors earmarked.
Earmarked, good word.
Oh, well, thank you. But did it bother you that they didn't want to use you?
I never wanted to play that part. I didn't. It was Francis that got me to do it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. And he really pulled for you, Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
All right. On another note, I want to change gears for a second. What about some of your leading ladies that you've worked with? Very talented women. What was it about Diane Keaton, who plays your wife in the movie, Kay, The Godfather? What was it that left the greatest impression on you about her acting?
She got a great ass.
Yes, she's a lovely woman. So I have to ask, what about Michelle Pfeiffer, who played your wife in another favorite of ours, Scarface? Michelle Pfeiffer.
She got a great ass.
All right, I could have guessed you were going to go that way, but we're going to change directions now. We're going to do 180. What about Marlon Brando?
Great ass.
All right, that's funny. Marlon, really? Marlon? All right, I'll just leave it at that. What else about Marlon, brought you to...
Great ass.
Marlon? Yeah.
I always felt that about him.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. I did want to ask you about a more recent movie you did, and that was about Phil Spector. The movie is with the same name. You played him in that movie. I heard you had an intimate relationship with him.
I nursed him through 2 divorces, a cocaine rehab, and a pregnant receptionist.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, it must be tough to be around people when they hit rock bottom.
When the bow breaks, the cradle will fall.
The cradle, huh? Is a big baby? All right, I know we're running out of time here, Ms. Pacino. One last thing. We are huge fans of the movie Scarface. I personally thought that you should have won an Academy Award for that role. Would you just give us your best impression, your favorite scene from that movie?
Why don't you try sticking your head up your ass? See if it fits.
Oh, that's great. Coming from you, I think I will definitely have to try that. And once again, Kat and I want to thank you so much for your phone call. And it's night here in New York, so we just wanted to say good night. And thank you so much for all your help. Well,
Wow.
that's it. The great Al Pacino. We got him all. We got him a classic. We got Al Pacino on our show, the next edition. All right, everybody. That's all I've got. Anything else you want to say?
I would say on a nice Friday night, bring you, your family, and kids, and saddle up and watch The Godfather. It's a good family movie to see.
Absolutely. And once again, I want to say this is not a terribly graphic movie. It is an adult theme. I even think the rating, I think it might have been rated R when it came out. I think it probably could be lowered to PG-13. There's not a lot of profanity. Definitely go and see it. Great movie. Not a lot of profanity or blood and guts. Little bit, but you can't miss this one in your lifetime. So for Vin, coming from New York City, and Kat coming from LA, from New York to LA, we will see you all at the next edition.